This episode is brought to you in part by DoiDuh's new line of hat merch. We'll hear more from that later on in the show. Hello there, my name is Doc Conrad, and this is my little preamble to the podcast. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who is a part of this podcast, including all the guests and the two wonderful artists who help bring this podcast to life. At Meloscav, at MELOSCAV, created the icon for this podcast, and at DoiDuh Flower, at DoiDuhFlower, is the artist behind the visuals on YouTube and other social media sites. If you'd like to keep up to date with the show, follow the show on Twitter at CommsOpenPodcast. A little bit of announcement before we get into our guest. I wanted to let you know that every episode from now on is not going to censor. So if it's been bothering your ears for quite a bit, just know that that won't be happening much more. Either way, today's guest is a very special one. They are the artist DoiDuh. I honestly cannot believe that I got a chance to interview them, and after this interview, I actually made them the artist for this podcast. So all in all, this has been a fantastic interview, and you can follow them on Instagram at DoiDuh and on Twitter at DoiDuh Flower, all one word, on both of them, on both Instagram and Twitter. I don't want to leave you all waiting, so I just want to say thank you and have a wonderful day. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Commissions Open, an interview podcast all about art in the digital age. You can hear the processes, stories, and lives of artists, voice actors, video creators, editors, musicians, and many other talented creators in the era of online work. I am your host, Doc Conrad, and today I have the most spectacular, most wonderful person who made my original profile icon and someone I've known for a long, long time, at least as a fan.
Okay.
DoiDuh. Hi.
Yes. Hello.
Hi. Okay, so yeah, I just want to say it's a little surreal being able to talk to you because I've of course I've commissioned you for the work that you've done. I've enjoyed your work for quite a long time, and I've known you. I don't know how far you want to go back, but Pathetic
Year.
Deku.
Oh no.
I've known you since then. Um,
Whoosh.
that was how long ago was that? Do you remember?
I think I started that in 2013, 2014.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
I've known you for at least 6 to 7 years, at least
Oh.
about your work, and I've been a fan ever since. I mean, like I'm literally wearing your shirt right now.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, yeah, I'm wearing your shirt right now. I'm so a little bit about okay. I'm sure you get some questions from like family members or people that like you want to go ahead and get in contact with. How would you best describe what you do?
I draw. I just like drawing. I like animating.
Mm.
That's about it. I
How
don't go
long
further into it.
yeah, how long ago did you go ahead and start all of this like getting into your getting into like wanting to draw and animate, like at what point where is it like that's what I want to do and you've stuck with it? Like what was that point?
Well, I've been drawing since I was very little, like when I was like baby years old, and the point I can't really recall the point where I thought, this is what I want to be doing all the time. It just, I guess it was just something I was just going to be doing because I enjoyed it.
Mhm. Um, what have been some of your like? I would go ahead and say like inspirations, because there's some that I've like seen that I've personally noticed. Mostly that from like your stylistic choices from especially Danny Antonucci and Ed Nettie. That has been one of the things that I've personally noticed. But I want to hear about your personal like what do you see and you're inspired by.
Well, from what I'm inspired by, well, when I did start drawing, I was inspired by a lot of anime and like animals like wolves. I don't know why a lot of artists at the start of that they're inspired by that for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up with some internet, and I was inspired by artists online. I know specifically there was someone called Count Andy, or I think they go by Andy Spiral now on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I was inspired by their work a lot growing up.
Oh.
Right now, I'm also inspired by a lot of my artist friends like Ardlo and Snappy, pretty much everyone I follow on there. And a lot of the stuff I'm inspired by is not visual. It's like music. I listen
Mm.
to a lot of music. Like two main artists right now is Nord and Lavina Yel. And I'm not necessarily inspired by actual cartoons because I didn't really grow up with cable.
Mm.
But like you said, Ed and Eddie is like one of the shows that I really enjoy watching because I just think it's very just cool to look at. It's very
Mm.
stretchy and funny.
Mm-hmm.
But for the actual when I actually decided, I want to have not necessarily a style, but I have a style for animating. The start for animating it was because of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and
Mm.
Cuphead, which was like probably 2 years ago when I started taking it a little more seriously, my art.
Mm-hmm. So, with you being inspired by like music and like different animals, you said like some of it some of the music I could definitely go ahead and see. Some of your characters I've noticed have been like a part of like either musicians or about singing songs, and I'm guessing the general moods from those things.
Yes.
You also have how much of the inspiration for your art do you take from like either things that have happened to you or real life or from real life? How much do you think your art and the way you're feeling are connected?
Oh, that's a lot of things because, well, I grew up like first generation Mexican American in Los Angeles, and
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all I've ever really known. It's honestly all I could really work with. And my neighborhood, we're all considered really low income, and my art and my characters are a direct reflection of that world.
Mm-hmm. Have do you have like specific you don't have to name names, but do you have like specific people you've like referenced for like some of your characters?
Specific names?
You don't have to have
Not
specific names, but like do
yeah,
you
not
have
not that I can. Yeah, not that
yeah.
I can say because there's a lot of characters that I have right now are actual real people. They're not actually real people, but it's like heavily based on them, and I can't really like I don't want to say who they are.
Okay. No, that's fine. No, I was curious if like that was the case of like you see a person that you've met like in real life and you found inspiration from that and create a character based on that. Is that that's not too much of a stretch to say, is it?
No, but it's just that I don't want them to know that they're in that.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Um, so a lot of I read a little bit about I think it was like a Q and A a while back. I this is how well quote unquote researched I am. It's just something I recalled. Your let's go ahead and back it up. So your main characters that you draw are Peter and Alex, who
Yes,
I have adored
yes,
for a long
yes,
time.
yes.
And I want to make things very clear, and I want you to know that I know about it. I know that Alex is non-binary,
Yes.
and Peter's a male. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And what I know there could be some like different like touchy subjects there involved with that, but is there any particular reason why you chose Alex to be non-binary?
Uh, at first, of course, they had like a set gender at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning when I made them in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And when I drew them both on the same paper, that's when I thought, there's something here. But they were both very underdeveloped. And
Mm-hmm.
when I saw Peter and Alex, when I was working on Alex, it's just I questioned, what would it be like if they were the other gender of what they were at the moment? And then I decided, well, because I like them being both genders, and I couldn't decide anymore. And
Mm.
then I decided, wait, they could just be non-binary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I decided to make that feeling, because of course I have like my own gender issues, it
Mm-hmm.
was for them being non-binary. It's important for me to be able to express myself without feeling like the audience has already put me in a category for my own gender or my
Mm-hmm.
appearance of gender. And with Alex, I'm able to be myself in art without much of that fear. And knowing that the audience might develop a perception of my characters for their gender is something I just don't want to deal with.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that, especially from people who aren't familiar with your art. I've seen them both and assume either or on at least
Yeah,
Alex.
yeah,
Peter's a little bit more like self-evident in the regard of like where the direction is you take the direction is you take him, and all the things he does, and like some of his mannerisms, especially from that, and his he would it be too much to say that Peter's a gross nasty boy? Is that too much to say?
it seems like he is, but
Mm-hmm.
I that's what I want people to think he is, but he
Mm-hmm.
really isn't.
Yeah. So there's definitely like a hard exterior, soft inside. That's what you're going for with him, especially.
Yeah, with how the way I designed Peter and Alex, I mean, they're both parts of myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a way, Peter, if if you want to go personal with it, in a way,
Mm-hmm.
Peter is more of how I see myself, and Alex
Mm.
is what I feel like is missing from myself. And I always saw myself as this like you said, nasty green thing who's aggressive and afraid of showing any other emotion, any other sensitive emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex is that part of myself I wish I was more okay with.
Mm-hmm.
And I designed them. I don't know if you believe this or not, but you don't have to. I designed them based on parts of my zodiac chart. Peter being
Oh.
my sun, Peter being my sun sign, and Alex being my moon.
Ooh.
The sun sign is the overall shell. Peter being an Aries, which is very fiery and very a punch to the face,
Mm-hmm.
and the moon is the emotions, and Alex is a Pisces. They're very sensitive and very connected to spirituality and love, and
Mm.
that's how they are. They're both very opposite, but in ways they both kind of need each other, and they can't really get away from each other.
I've definitely seen that more often than not, especially in them as kids. That is very evident where they're nearly always together. And
Yes.
now that you mention it, yeah, that is like I had no clue that it was involved with that whole Zodiac thing. I know a little bit about the signs and stuff like that, but I personally don't believe. But I've definitely I could definitely go ahead and tell that based off of what you've stated, like that could be a direct influence. Um,
Yes.
uh, so a little bit further, more about them. There are some times where you draw Peter a little bit older, at least like in
Yes.
his like teens and as he's like very old. And there are some confirmations in which like the reason why you don't choose Alex to go ahead and be older. But for the audience at home who don't know, what is your reasoning why you don't draw Alex to be older, but you draw Peter to be so?
Well, the reason is because they're non-binary,
Mm-hmm.
and in ways it hurts me when people refer to them as he or she.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when you age, it kind of becomes visible whether or not they're male or female,
Mm-hmm.
biologically. So that's the main reason is because I just don't want people to see what they are, even though I haven't decided. It's just I don't. It actually does hurt me. I don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no specific reason, or like a super secret reason why I don't they don't show up. They are there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the ways I do show them is like because Peter, when he's older, he's a little messed up. So in ways I can show Alex is through like hallucinations from Peter.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense with the reason why you wouldn't want to show them immediately.
Yeah.
And I think that that comes that sort of like personal growth for like if you were to eventually show them would have to come from an understanding of like an audience and that is a character of like them knowing your character.
Yeah.
And a lot of I'd say more of your dedicated fans are aware of that dynamic, but there's a lot of people who aren't aware.
Yeah.
And it's just it's something that's I think is very important to at least like recognize. But I know that at least your animated shorts that you've done with Peter and Alex, which I love absolutely. Peter to the Extreme.
Yes.
Uh, I you what are some of the tell me a bit about that because I've seen some of your tweets and some of your like messages of like about your process of going through that animated like either it be like getting it like actually sent through to be like a big network thing or just an independent thing like what has been your process with that specifically.
Uh, well, the thing that's going on right now is called Peter and Alex, and they're more shorts, and it's more of an introduction, and people just even noticing them, or people to feel something for them to feel connected towards these two characters.
Mm-hmm.
And with that's just for now. That's for some sort of support. For Peter to the Extreme, that's the big thing. That's the thing I wish I could do, and I'm trying to figure out in what way can I do it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a little difficult to to have that big of a dream because of there's a lot of setbacks. I mean, I can't continue with my education anymore, and there's just things that I just don't really know because I don't have that doorway in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just working with what I have right now and see what the audience would want, see how they like it.
I definitely I definitely have become like I've literally become attached to these characters. I have a shirt of them on. Like all right. So I'm gonna tell you a quick funny story about this shirt because
Yes.
I wore it to my grandparents' retirement home, and there was an individual who stated like, "Oh, I love your shirt," and I said thanks, and he said, "Is that from?" And then he kept snapping his fingers and couldn't place his thing on it, and then I stated the name, and he's like, "I have no idea what that is," but it
that's
was
that's
like, huh? What are you saying?
that's what people tell me when they see Peter and Alex. They say like, I for some reason I remember this, but I know that it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I I've gotten at least like a couple of like I at least gotten like a couple of reactions from different people stating that they've like at least known like they've seen it or they
Uh-huh.
at least that they like at least that they like the shirt or that they feel like they know it, which is like I guess
Yeah.
it's an odd feeling considering like there's no like it's not that big at this
Uh-huh.
point. But yeah, I just thought that was like a funny little story to say.
I'm so glad I'm able to achieve that feeling in people,
Mhm.
that it just seems recognizable.
And you know what that means? That I think that what that means is that it's not only that it's recognizable, but that there's a sense of nostalgia from it at the very
Hmm.
least. And that I definitely think that there's some definitely like some definite vibes you can get from that. At least that's
Hmm.
what I can see.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so let's go ahead and go a little bit further back to when you were first making the characters. You said that you had you previously said that you had them on like different little pieces of paper in like what was it like middle school? You said
Yeah,
yeah, and
they both.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, continue.
No. I was basically gonna go ahead and like go back and state that you eventually like put them together and see how it happened. But I'd love to hear more about that sort of thing.
Well, in middle school at the time, I was really into clowns and circuses.
Mm.
So I was constantly drawing just characters that are just from the circus. And Alex was uh, a side character, not too important at the time. They were just they were a mime. They
Mm.
didn't speak. They didn't even have a name. And there wasn't much. I didn't really draw them too much. They were just there.
Mm-hmm.
And with Peter, he was also not. I think there was a drawing I found on the floor in front of my science class, and I picked it up, and there was just this weird kid with a what are they called, roller skates,
Mm-hmm.
rolling down a hill, and there was some buildings on fire, and there was the word Peter on it, and there was no name on it because it was like torn up and stepped on. Just I'm just gonna keep this and see what I can do. And that was for middle school, because then in high school I forgot what I was doing in high school. I don't know what I was drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think recently, about 2 years ago, I was I was lost again. I just didn't know what to draw anymore. I was still drawing, but there was no uh there was nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to go back into all of my old characters and see, well, I could probably just like redo them again, or uh bring life back into them. And I remembered about Alex. And Alex, I don't think they still had a name. They didn't have a name
Mm-hmm.
still. Their design wasn't as it is now. They were still pretty ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that character Peter is just okay, I'm gonna just draw them. And I was drawing a bunch of different characters on the same page, but when I drew Peter and Alex interacting with each other because they were young. So young kids, like, draw them like beating Peter beating up Alex.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I thought I could continue with this. And I had a project in that class. I forgot what class it was. It was 2D design, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the assignments was to create a comic. And at that time I was drawing Peter and Alex, and I thought, okay, I'll just implement them in this. And I think I think that was the point when I did just realize there was something there.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the artists behind Peter and Alex and Commissions Open, it's DoiDuh's new line of hat merch. You can grab yourself an embroidered P&A cotton twill dad hat or a warm thick wool blend beanie in several different colors. You can get yours today at citycaps.co/collections/DOI-DUH. That's citycaps.co/collections/DoiDuh. So this happened like relatively recently. Like you'd say about like what, 3 years ago? Like around
About
that
two
point?
years.
2 years?
They existed since middle school, but them as it is now is 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. This is like early 2018. Okay. Huh. Wow. It feels, I don't know. It feels like it's been a lot longer for me. I don't know why. I feel like I've known them for a while. Feel like I've known like these characters for a while.
Hmm.
But that was more for when you made them your main. I guess it's when you made them like your main, like your profile image, and like for some of your different like
Yeah.
social media and everything like that. You mainly literally centered on these two, and you've like
Yes.
developed these stories.
Yeah.
So is there any other characters that you have also made that have like made it into like the overarching like somewhat story, or that for your Peter and Alex like animations, or like other drawings?
Like like other main characters or something.
Well, they don't even have to be main. Like I've seen some
Mm.
like other smaller ones that I've noticed.
Yeah, those are the ones that are based off that they're pretty much based off of real people that I knew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Those are the ones.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's not that I don't want to talk about them. It's just that there isn't too much to them that I don't think are interesting.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the other ones you can express through those two because they're most related to you. Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. So you, of course, are also a commission-based artist, and the podcast is called Commissions Open. I'd also love to go ahead and talk more about your experience with that. Like, when did you start? Like, anything about it?
Like commissions?
Yeah, commissions itself.
Well, I started commissions. Well, I can't really remember when I started commissions, but I know they were just like cheap little things, like $10 uh commissions. But commissions, they're great. I don't really like to charge too much with them, but
Mm-hmm.
most of my clients are nice and they give me tips, and I'm very thankful for that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do get commissioned some weird stuff from time to time, but it's my job to make my client comfortable and to not make them feel bad about yeah, like what they're into, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little funny because most of my proudest pieces come from those types of commissions,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me a little upset that not everyone gets to see them.
Pushed out of your comfort zone just a little bit, and it like improves of what you've done.
Yeah, I used to do like big paintings. There was specifically one commissioner that would commission me every week, like with commissions that costed like $150, and they were painted, and it's just like, man, relax. But those are the pieces I'm most proud of because I think they look really great, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't really show them. They're not really appropriate to show.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I think I might be aware of the work. But that's like that's totally fun to go and talk about. And a lot of people who do commissions, especially do that kind of work, NSFW
Yeah.
work. I've seen that
Hmm.
I've seen that done with like other people that I've even interviewed who have done those commissions. There's no real shame in it, especially in this especially in how it's going in the modern the 21st century with how everything's
Yep.
like more connected on the internet.
Yep.
Um, so for for your like commission wise, when is it that you think that you started doing so? I know you said you did a little. You've like done it more recently, especially with you being more online. But have you like did you like do it for, I don't know, like family members or like people who enjoyed your art like when you were like a kid? Like, how early did it start?
It was really online. Didn't no Nobody in real life really like wanted to pay me for to draw something. It was more online when I
Mm-hmm.
had that Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
That was the start.
When did you make Pathetic Deku again? Was that like you said it was 2013? Was that 2013?
2013,
13? Yeah.
2013, 2014.
Yeah. What was the it's been a while since it's been a little bit deactivated. But what was your reasoning for getting rid of it? I'm just curious.
I got old. Well, I was too young and I was just posting whatever I wanted, and then that whole Facebook thing happened with the reach,
Mm.
and it's just I didn't really want to just shit post anymore. I wanted to draw more, and
Mhm.
Facebook just wasn't the place for it.
Ah, that makes sense.
And it just, yeah, it just became more of like a hassle
Mm.
having to post.
Mm. Now you're just on your like your one Facebook profile, and then you're on Twitter and you're on Instagram.
So
Which by the way,
I just deactivated my Facebook.
you did? Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
forgot about that. You only have Messenger. That's the only way I can contact you. I can't look at your Facebook profile. And
Yep.
oh man, it feels wow. It's just an interesting thing because I've always a lot of the old artists that I used to enjoy were all on Facebook and the reach got killed, but I've still like
Yeah.
kept up with some of them, especially
Yeah.
through like their main profiles. So and you were you were one of them that have like kept in touch with this entire time, which I've enjoyed.
Yes.
I do appreciate once again, I do appreciate you coming over for this. Okay. Sorry, now I'm babbling. What am I say next? Um, so how much do you think you dedicate to this line of work, drawing and animating? Like, how much of that is what you do, like as a job? I'm curious.
As a job, the thing is, I think I don't want it as a job anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I I've gotten to a point where I realize that, you know, it's it's started to become enjoyable. And I don't think that was the point. That was anything in the creative field, when it becomes a job, it really is nothing left. There's no
Mm.
enjoyment in it anymore, and I'm kind of glad that I can't afford to further my education in the art field
Mm.
because I get to enjoy it now. There's no, I can't, I don't, I'm not limited anymore. I'm not expected to expand myself or any of that. So I think with a job, I'm gonna have to figure out something else. But with my art, it's it's for me. It's really for me.
Mm-hmm. That's that's a really interesting way of putting it. I've had like multiple different takes on this, especially people saying that like the work that you put in is a job because you want to put a lot of time and effort into it, and there are people who like you went the traditional animation route, at least
Mhm.
going through the classes, and realize that like there's a lot of like either red tape or a lot of things that have like gone that I don't know you've had to basically limit yourself in order to in order to like quote unquote market yourself better or something
Yeah,
like that. You've learned all these like different things, and you don't want to do that anymore, at least in that traditional sense.
yeah.
Um, but having your art just be for you is actually really great. I'm happy that you got. I'm not happy that you couldn't afford to go to couldn't afford to go to school, but I'm happy that you found yourself in that way.
Well, if school were to be less expensive, then I would probably still continue. But I think
Mm-hmm.
still at the end, I wouldn't want to like work under someone else. I want to do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that independence is what's really important. I think that you especially have like a set, and I know that like sometimes blocks come in where you don't not entirely sure what you want to do, um, but I think that you have a strong vision for what you've wanted to do, and a lot of those characters are based on how you feel. So
Yes,
no matter what you do, like you'll be able to go ahead and at least have those characters be like I'd say a part of you, and like you be able to go ahead
yeah,
and create more for them.
yes.
All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and see here. You have a lot of and we've spoken quite a bit about your drawings, about your animations. What have been how long have you been animating?
2 years ago,
Mm.
when pretty much when Cuphead came out.
Mm.
Hmm.
You've been animating since then, and that was like when you immediately started it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's when I
Mm.
thought, I'm gonna give it a shot.
Hmm. You also have work with like different audio clips and also like real life inspirations. I've seen like your work where you've actually filmed things and put them into your animation. Is
Yes.
there any particular reason why you like to go ahead and do that?
Mm, well, I'm bad at drawing backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, I really like that mixed media look.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great on both ends.
Hmm. All right. Let's see. What was I know there was more. Okay. So you say that you were pretty comfortable with talking about some things that you've dealt, especially with your background. We talked a little
Yes.
bit about Alex and how they're non-binary, and you touched a little bit on your background, but I want to know about I want to know your personal experience growing up, just a little bit more. Like if you want to go ahead, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and like putting yourself out there, I would love to go and hear more about it.
Well, growing up, well, I'm only 22,
Mm-hmm.
and I and I have issues, of course. So there isn't a lot to say. Well, Peter and Alex, they both pretty much saved my life. I mean, I grew up uh kind of at war with myself
Mm.
because of the world itself. And it's mostly with school. I mean, when I have an older sister and she mostly tells me like things that happen because she's out there, she's outgoing, and she's out in the world doing things that I just can't seem to do myself. and she tells me these things that really uh they kind of do break my heart. I mean, she's faced with a lot of issues, and it's just with discrimination like in any minority in this country. And
Mm-hmm.
she shows me how systematic it is. Like, the at school our art programs weren't funded because of the budget cuts, and I've had to witness people moving into Los Angeles from other states or cities, and it makes things more difficult for people like me and my community. And it sort of makes it so that if we can't afford rent, we can't afford school either, or
Mm-hmm.
even leisure activities like pursuing our passions. I can't continue my passion anymore. And my my mom came to the US for a better life for her and her family, yet we might just move back because we're being pushed out. And our self-esteem is highly affected because it makes me really sad when I do walk into the universities or even places like Beverly Hills and I see no one like me. And when I go to these places, I have to watch the way I speak or even the way I eat my food just so that I don't get looked at, you know?
Mm.
It's just growing up, growing up has just, it's become harder and harder.
You've experienced like quite a different life, that I think is very important to
Mm-hmm.
especially be recognized, to be heard, and especially from someone who, especially from somebody who experienced it in in an artistic sense. Not only can you express the way that you felt and the way that you've dealt this way, more in different creative outlets, but it's also sad to see that like the creative outlet in which you have been, you have a great passion for, isn't 100% sustainable with how everything's been
Mm-hmm.
going.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that, I think it's very important that your perspective is 100% not only it's needed in this community,
Mm-hmm.
that of artists, animators, and commissioners, and in like online creatives. Um, your voice is really needed,
Mm-hmm.
especially in that regard. And that's not to go ahead and even state that the art that you make is inherently like political. Like it's not. It's your life, and that is,
Yes.
I think that is, it's incredibly like it's incredibly, not like I keep saying, it's incredibly needed. And I'm glad that you're here to go ahead and express it. And it's sad for me to go and hear that like there are things that are like getting in the way of being able to express who you really are and like
Yeah.
how you can be yourself. I think that it's important for everyone to go ahead and recognize that, especially from, not especially from, but like from an artist perspective. It's incredibly, it's an incredibly, the way that you can express yourself is, that of like it subverts people's expectations initially. And
Mm.
I think it's also like really, it's really good that you can do that, because when it gets to some people who are like someone willing to shut that thing off, shut that their brain off when they hear these things, they're not willing to go ahead and listen, um,
Yeah.
to these things. And I think that having an artist perspective really subverts the expectation of being able to hear it, but then it actually gets through via characters and
Mm-hmm.
the way that you've been able to express yourself. So yeah, I thank you for sharing that. That's really like kind of you to go ahead and do so, especially to speak up
Yeah.
on it. I appreciate that so much. Hopefully I wasn't babbling on too much about that, but yeah. Um
Yeah.
okay. All right. I think that there's quite a bit that we've covered. Your This is going to be a little bit where I like not only shout you out, and but I'm also going to gush about your work. I your The amount of time that I've known you has been since like we were both kids. Like I'm 21, almost 22. You're 22. Like
Yeah.
we've both grown up with me being a fan of yours, with me being like a fan of yours, which is really like weird, I guess. Um, but this is a part in which I want to go ahead and state that those followers that you have on all those different social media platforms, they are not just numbers. I believe that each and every single one of them follows you for the specific reason of not only is your art very expressive and the work that you make is really high quality, but also they enjoy what you have done with your characters. They've enjoyed what you express in that certain way, and I can 100% like back up and saying like with the physical proof that I am wanting to support what you have done, the work that you will continue to hopefully make, and the eventual creation of. I'm not gonna go ahead and say like, oh, you might change your path to whatever it might be. For instance, like if you want to make a different kind of series or grow eventually as an artist to do something different, and that's totally fine. But I will support Peter and Alex to the day I fucking die. Like I'm not gonna be kidding with you. Just like how I have supported like I love cartoons and different animated shows for the longest time, and NA being one of the big ones. And I'll admit that like my attachment may come from like me enjoying that initially so much, and you having that similar art style. But know that it's grown past like, oh yeah, I love this artist because X. It's become I've loved your characters and I love your work, and I think that you deserve to be you deserve to have a spotlight shown on the work that you've done. Specifically on Twitter at DoiDuhFlower and on Instagram at DoiDuh, because everyone needs to follow you. You're amazing. All right, that's me gushing over.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. I mean, Peter and Alex are very important to me as well, and no one's gonna take them away from me. No one's gonna take them away.
Yeah.
They're stuck with me and they're a part of me. And if they do, oh my God, I honestly, not to be dramatic and scary, but I would honestly kill myself if someone took them away from me. No way, I can't handle that. Those two are very important to me, and I'm glad that they're important to other people as well, that other people see what I'm seeing.
I kind of want to go ahead and touch on that with your like strong connection to these characters, because remember a while back, this has stuck with me, when you were, or at least someone was telling you, or maybe you researched this about I believe it was Nickelodeon. You were looking at like the process of applying your animation to become like a feature short or a show. And
I was applying for an internship, and what I didn't read is that they can, quote unquote, take inspiration from what I submit. And considering what Nickelodeon has done to like SpongeBob, I'm not sure if you heard what they've done after the passing of the creator.
Stephen Hillenburg.
It's become, they're untrustworthy, and that's just, I'm worried about it. I have to watch what I do. That's why when I say that I can't continue my passion or can't continue in this field of art and animation, it's because I just don't want these two to be taken away from me. Because that's all I really want. I don't necessarily want to animate for other people or do other things that I'm not going to enjoy. I want Peter and Alex. I'm here for them, and the thought of them being taken away, I can't handle it.
And that's it's very important for people to realize, like, it's especially coming from you, because you've literally like put connection to these characters so much, and your love for it shows. But art theft has been a topic that we've had discussions from many other artists of like people taking either quote unquote taking inspiration from what people have done and just straight ripping things, or people who aren't willing to go ahead and pay after commissions or stuff like that. I'd love to hear anything that if you ever personally experienced from that, like at all.
Well, with commissions, thankfully everyone has gone through with their commissions. And with art theft, of course, when I was drawing a bunch of fan art, I lost I lost a lot of money. Well, I didn't necessarily lose a lot of money. They just gained money that they weren't supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so because of that, it really made me just not want to do fan art. And that's when I think that was the point where I got lost again because I didn't have anything personal to draw.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really expect to get stolen from my own stuff I create. But because I didn't think it was like worthy, I didn't think people would like it so much like they did with when I did fan art.
Mm-hmm.
But they did. They didn't necessarily like took my art. I have found some people on Instagram who would trace over my art and I just keep my mouth shut. But there's been people who have stolen their designs and it's just it like I said, it does hurt because these characters mean so much to me and they just like someone just totally took their whole design and renamed them, but it's just I don't really like being that person to call people out either, but I don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as long as the people that I have know that it's from me, then that's all that really matters to me.
I While I agree that like sometimes it's hard to go ahead and get that confrontation out, this work that you've done is incredibly unique to you, and you deserve to go ahead and be accredited with it. And I hope you don't in the future sell yourself short, because your
Mm.
art is worthy of like so. So it's the beautiful thing about becoming more popular on the internet. More people like what you do, but there are some people who are smarmy enough to like want to go ahead and take what you do and like make it their own.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, cons- quote, don't take this out of context, but consider it a compliment that that there are people who think that you're so good. Then there are people who don't have enough talent that they want to go ahead and then instead of making their own thing, they take what you have wonderfully created and try to pass it off as their own.
Yeah.
I think it's not a good way of thinking about it because like they deserve to be punished for like taking your things.
Yeah.
But I think there's some sort of spin we could put on it. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but I definitely think
I
that you should definitely take care of those people.
yeah.
All right. All right. Is there anything that you feel like you want to go ahead and talk about? Either whether it be something you've wanted to like tell different people on like in either in a wider audience or like maybe your followers who even want to go ahead and talk about like discussing things with them. Is there anything ever wanted to say?
um the stuff I put on the internet, especially with Peter and Alex, it literally is my life. It's just I'm really pathetic, literally pathetic Deku. I don't have anything else going on with my life. I'm lame. No, I know I shouldn't talk down on myself, but I'm lame. I'm just there's like nothing there. So everything that I post of Peter and Alex, it's all that I am. It really is all that I am, and I'm putting. It may not seem like it, but I'm putting so much of myself out there. That's is not necessarily make me uncomfortable, but it's I'm sharing so much, and I'm okay with people not seeing it, or if they do see it. But I it does mean a lot to me when people do like what I do post out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's all I am. It really is. All my art is all I am.
I think that comes with a little bit of vulnerability, but I think that it
Yes.
is it. I hope that the people that like it show that it is a wonderful thing that you're posting out there, and I hope you continue to think that. I know it'll be hard sometimes, but I hope you continue to think that.
Yes.
Um, okay. So I've already I've already hopefully stated something, but I'm going to go ahead and make mention of this, especially in the first episode of the podcast. But I'm hoping that you'll be. Uh, you've already said that you want to go ahead and work on a commit. I've always wanted to submit a commission for this podcast. That being the set.
Yes.
Um, and I would love for each time that a new guest pops on, I'd love to go ahead and pay you for each one. And I know that's a little bit like, oh no, it's a job, but like I want to support you that much that every character that comes on, I want to like give you some back for it, because you know your work is really quality, and I love how you do that. So I want to go ahead and make sure that I'm not like selling you short. I'd love to go ahead and work with you more in the future, especially regarding this show that I'm hoping to go ahead and make like more and more of a thing. But I definitely think that if you ever worry about like having any self-doubts about yourself, just know that like there is a lot of people who do enjoy your work and who are willing to go ahead and support you through and through. And I hope that I could be one of those people to go ahead and do that. I mean, like, I'm literally wearing an icon that you made and I've kept for the longest time because I love it so much. Anyway, that just about wraps it up. It's about it's been about an hour. You did great. Can I just say, like, you were really worried. You did great.
Yeah, I don't do this a lot. I don't use my voice a lot. And when I do use my voice, my throat hurts by now.
Are you feeling all right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and hit the end recording button in just a sec, but hey, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Commissions Open. If you would, please follow this podcast on whatever app you use. I would most definitely appreciate it. If you're just listening, that's perfectly fine. However, if you'd like, you can also watch this podcast on YouTube to see a custom commission every episode for each guest I have on, as well as to see the wonderful podcast set. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at ComsOpenPodcast. That's COMS Open Podcast on Twitter. Finally, you can follow today's guest DoiDuh on Instagram at DoiDuh and on Twitter at DoiDuhFlower. That's DoiDuh Flower on Twitter and DoiDuh on Instagram. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.